So the lesson that I'm going to discuss for this meeting is the topic sampling for research. Right, lesson objectives. At the end of the lesson, the students can differentiate the various methods of sampling and formulate the criteria for choosing respondents or subjects. Although you already have the criteria for your study, since we're done with the methodology part of your study, and then we're also done with the tawag nito, outline defense. So I will just discuss this one to you so that you will have further knowledge about this topic. Right. So this element of the research methodology discusses how the subjects or respondents of the study are selected and how an appropriate sampling method is chosen. So when conducting a research, it's very important that you know who are the sources of your study, especially if you need people in order to gather your research data. So remember in your outline defense, one of the most commonly questions being asked um, by the panel members is the criteria of your research participants. It's because you just cannot um, assign people to participate or respond in your study. You need to make a guideline or a set of criteria that will qualify your research participants since you need genuine data for your study. Subjects can be individuals or groups to which interventions or processes are applied. So, in conducting a research, we have different terminologies to use depending on what type of research that you're going to conduct. We have the respondents, participants, subjects, and corpora. When we say respondents, this refers to the quantitative study. So if you are going to conduct a quantitative study, the term that you need to use is respondents, research respondents. And if you're going to conduct a qualitative study, the term that you're going to use is participants, research participants. If case study naman, you're going to use subjects for case studies, experimental, such as mga laboratory research, subjects ang tawag. If you're not going to need people in your study, documents lang yung kailangan ninyo, you just have to analyze existing documents appropriate for your study, you will just need the term corpora or research corpora. Ganun siya. Or if you're um, if you're doing an interview, then you transcribe or you analyze the duration of the interview, meaning what are the words being uh, transcribed dun sa interview, tawag na dun is corpora or corpus. So here's an illustration of sampling for research. So we have the term population and sample. So as what you can see in this image, population refers to all people who belong in a particular group. In conducting a study, it's not necessary to include all the members in one population to participate or respond in your study. You will just need um, appropriate number of people from that population. So it's not necessary that you need to include them, all of them. You just need samples or individuals who will represent the whole population. A population is composed of persons or objects that possess some common characteristics that are of interest to the researchers. Okay, when you say population, this is the specific group of people that qualify to participate or respond to your study. Say population, all the members of that group. That is population. Okay, halimbawa, your interest is to study a certain behavior about the students in Christian colleges of Southeast Asia, sa CCSA. Population refers to the whole students of CCSA. Example, in SBE or School of Basic Education, from early childhood up to senior high school students. Yun yung population. Okay, another examples of population. All registered voters in Davao City, all members of the Alliance Church, all Filipinos who played golf at least once in the past year. But populations are not just about people, but it can also refer to things as well. Okay, examples, all widgets produced last Tuesday by the Acme Widget Company, all daily maximum temperatures in July for major US cities. So as what you can see, lahat ng members of that group, that population, are all included when we say population. And if you are the researcher, it's not practical to conduct a study that requires all the members of the population. Kaya halimbawa, all registered voters in Davao City, grabe kataas sa scope or dako kay ang scope sa yung study. It will take so much time to survey sa lahat ng registered voters. Thus, you need to narrow down who will represent all the registered voters in Davao City or the members of the Alliance Church, meaning representative lang yung kailangan ninyo. Okay, there are two groups of population. We have the target and accessible. Say target population consists of the entire group of people or objects to which the findings of the study generally apply. Say target population, it refers to the entirety of the population or the group, meaning lahat. When say accessible population, the specific study population. Kaya halimbawa, if you consider the students in CCSA to become your research respondents. So you need to narrow the population. Kung sino lang yung accessible sa inyong study. Halimbawa, the junior high school students ba? Either the senior high school students, the grade school students, or ECE students. Kung sino yung accessible para sa study ninyo. And as much as possible, they still qualify to the criteria of your study. So ganun siya yung target population and accessible population. Target population, all the members, accessible, all the members in a specific subgroup dun sa target population. Then let's proceed to samples. A sample is a subset of the entire population or a group of individuals that represents the population and serve as the respondents of the study. Okay, you say sample, it's just a group inside a population that will represent the entire population, meaning a selected group of people or persons from that specific group of specific entire population. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng sample. A single member of the sample is called an element. So, halimbawa, the study, may mga studies na need yung senior high school students. Since hindi lahat ng senior high school students are necessary to respond or participate sa study, so kailangan na ng samples doon sa senior high school students. So yung magiging respondents ng study, each one of the respondent is called an element. Okay, here's an illustration of are going to conduct a sampling in your study. So we have the target population, accessible population, and the sample. Okay, for example, ang target population, merong 15,000 senior high school students in Davao City for the school year 2019 to 2020. So you only need the accessible population of that study. So you have 5,000 senior high school sa first district of Davao City, since itong Davao City is divided into three districts: first, second, and third district. So yung accessible population lang sa inyo is yung first district lang. So merong 5,000 senior high school students sa um, Davao City, first district ng Davao City. But still, it's a large number, itong 5,000. You have to narrow down. So gagamit ka ng statistics in order to identify what specific number dun sa samples lang ninyo. Kaya halimbawa, yung sample lang na kailangan ninyo from the 5,000 senior high school students sa first district, Davao City, 900 lang yung i-include ninyo na mag-participate or respond sa study. So, itong 15,000 at saka 5,000, ang tawag dito is parameter. Itong figures na 15,000 and 5,000 for target population and accessible population, parameter ang tawag. But when we say the figure, dito sa sample, it's called statistics. Kasi ginamitan na siya ng statistics in order to compute or calculate the specific number of students that you'll be needing depending on the number of target population or accessible population. Another illustration of the relationship between samples and population. Halimbawa, ito yung sa right side, ito yung population ninyo. If yung sampling method na kailangan ninyo is random lang, random selection, so halimbawa, kailangan ng 6 from this specific number of population. 6 lang yung samples kailangan. So, ito siya, yung samples ninyo. Next, ways to determine the sample size. Okay. An important task of the researcher is to determine the acceptable sample size. The larger the sample, the more reliable the result of the study. Hence, it is advisable to have a large enough sample for it will yield more reliable results. Okay. So since you are conducting a qualitative, hindi na siya necessary na mag-undergo kayo ng ganitong process. For the sake lang na you just have to know this one. Sa practical research 2 pa nyo kailangan na mag-undergo ng tawag dito yung sampling method kasi for ano siya for quantitative. But since for qualitative study, di na siya necessary na kailangan mag-compute or mag-calculate ng specific number of tawag nito ng sample size. So in determining the sample size, it's very important that you need to use the specific formula. Kasi mayroon tayong different criteria when it comes to selecting the population or the people that you'll be needing in order to participate or respond to your study. So kapag malaki yung sample size, kailangan, ang population, there should be enough or adequate sample size so that you can generate adequate data for your study para mas reliable siya. Then factors to consider in determining the sample size. First is the homogeneity of the population. So you need to consider if the population share the same level of characteristics. Kasi kapag ganyan, if homogeneous yung population, you will just need smaller sample size. But if varied naman yung population ninyo, meaning heterogeneous, you need a larger size para sa study. The next is degree of precision desired by the researcher. Okay, the more the data you need to gather, meaning the larger the sample size that you need for your study. Then types of sampling procedure. Okay, there are various types of sampling procedure. As what I have mentioned earlier, it depends upon the uh, type of study that you are conducting and the criteria of your research. So depende siya. Yung criteria or yung the selection of your research respondents. Then the use of formula. So there's a specific formula in order to use para you can come up with the right number of samples for your study. Then we have the Slovin formula. Say, itong Slovin formula, if the sample size is large, yung kailangan ninyo, since yung population is marami siya. Itong Slovin formula, this is how you're going to compute. Okay, by the way, this is just an introduction sa uh, different statistics formula na kailangan para sa study, but we will not dig deeper. Halimbawa, let n be the population size and the margin of error E denotes the allowed probability of committing an error in selecting a small representative of the population. Okay, ito yung formula ng Sloven. Okay, halimbawa, sorry. E, itong E, ibig sabihin nito, tawag nito, the margin of error. Okay, halimbawa, yung study ninyo, meron kayong 95% yung confidence level ninyo. So, which means that i-minus siya sa 100. So, 100 minus 95, meaning yung margin of error is 5%. Ganun siya. Ito namang N, itong capitalized letter N, it refers to the number of population study. Ito, halimbawa, kung sa study ninyo is merong 240 yung population, so you just have to distribute the numbers according to the formula. So itong 240, it refers to the number of population. Ito namang 0.04, this refers to the margin of error. So as what I have mentioned earlier, kapag yung confidence level ninyo is 95, meaning yung margin of error ninyo is 5%. Or for this specific sample, yung confidence level is 96% since the margin of error is 4%. So you just have to distribute. Kapag i-compute nyo to, lalabas ang 173.41. Since when choosing the sample for study, pagdating na sa actual people, there's no, ang tawag nito, decimal point. So, kailangan i-convert siya whether 5 above. Di ba kapag when you, tawag ito, sige tawagin sa decimal point, round off. Pag mag-round off mo, kailangan 5 siya dapat, di ba? So, for example, if this is 173.51, magiging 174 siya. So in determining the sample size, it's not necessary na anong tawag nito na ma-round off siya. As long as may decimal point, kailangan i-include siya sa i-round off siya sa actual number. So since 173.41, 174 na ang inyong sample size. Since we're talking about people, we cannot divide people na kanang actual na para ma-suffice lang jud ang decimal point. So next, we have Calmorin and Calmorin. Itong Calmorin and Calmorin, it's the same with Sloven, pero na meron siyang specific na itong Sloven kasi mas large yung population compared with Calmorin and Calmorin. Okay, for a population of more than 100, sampling is a must. Following is a formula for scientific sampling. So this is the formula for sa Calmorin. Calmorin. We'll not dig deeper na lang sa ano. Okay, other considerations. Kaya halimbawa if yung tawag nito, the least number or yung minimum number ng sample size is 30. That's what we also call universal sampling. Kaya halimbawa, kung hindi na kayo mag-undergo ng sampling method, pwede na kayo mag-universal sampling na lang, which is 30 respondents among the population. Why 30? It's because it's the adequate number para pa-suffice yung, anong tawag nito? Yung sa curve, mayroon tinatawag na curve kasi sa ano sa statistics. So kaya 30 yung minimum or yung adequate number kasi yun siya ang a reasonable number when it comes to statistics. That's the acceptable size. Okay, kapag descriptive yung study ninyo, so sa population, kailangan 10 to 20%. Kapag correlational studies naman, descriptive correlational na mga studies, 30 yung minimum subjects, participants, or respondents para sa study. Kapag comparative naman, if you compare people or if you compare respondents, halimbawa, meron kayong tatlong grupo na i-compare. Each group should contain 5 respondents. 15 respondents or 15 subjects or 15 participants kapag comparative. So which means that lahat ng overall sample size ninyo is 45 since tatlong grupo tapos 15 participants or respondents. Kapag experimental naman, 15 to 30 subjects per group. So these are the other considerations. Meron tayong sample size na 30 for universal sampling or this is the acceptable size. For descriptive, 10 to 20% ng population. Pag correlational, at least 30. The same sa ito yung universal sampling. Kapag comparative naman, at least 15 per group. Kapag experimental, 15 to 30 per group. Then let's proceed to sampling method. Sampling is a way of getting a representative portion of the target population. Okay, as what I have discussed earlier, you say sampling or the samples, these are the representative of the whole population, meaning this is just selected persons in order to participate or respond to the study. It's not necessary to include all the members in the population. Regardless of the research design, whether descriptive or experimental, used by a researcher, sampling is needed for practical reasons, especially when the population is very large. So kapag marami yung population ninyo, so it's necessary talaga that you will utilize sampling method. You need sampling formula in order to compute or calculate the specific number of samples that you'll be needing for study, yung desirable na number of study, for effectiveness, efficiency, and economy in data gathering. Kasi it's not practical also. If you include all the members' population, you will, ang tawag nito, you'll spend a lot of money. So, by utilizing sampling method, it's economical. Sampling is needed in a research involving a large population that may be limited by human resources, money, materials, and machinery. So since if your resources are very limited, thus you need to use sampling method in order to maximize or not to exhaust your resources po. Okay, the strengths of sampling. Time, money, and effort are minimized. Okay, by sampling, the number of respondents, subjects, or items to be studied becomes small, yet they represent the whole population. Okay, so since ang tawag nito, sampling or the samples, adequate number of samples are already enough in order to suffice the data that you'll be needing for your study. Okay, sampling is more effective since every individual in the population is given a chance to be selected. Through sampling, data are scientifically gathered and analyzed and interpreted. So, as what I have said, that it's not necessary anymore to include all the population, all the members in a population, since the representatives for that population can give the adequate data na para sa study. Research is made faster and cheaper. Okay, mas madali mag-conduct ng study if you apply sampling method for your study. Mas madali siya. And mas cheaper, mas economical. Sampling makes research more accurate. So, when you use sampling, meaning there's a scientific way of choosing the specific number of persons that you'll be needing out of that particular population. So since you use sampling method, meaning scientific ang inyuhang pag-choose sa um, members dito sa population. Mas accurate siya, meaning makahatag sila og accurate nga results sa study. The weaknesses of sampling. Due to the limited number of data source, detailed sub-classification must be prepared with utmost care. Ito namang sa sampling method, if yung study ninyo is kapag maraming criteria yung kinoconsider, there's list of specific characteristics that the members or your target population should suffice. So, mahihirapan kayo na pumili kasi there's a possibility that many of the members in one population do not qualify doon sa criteria na sinet ninyo for your study. Okay, incorrect sampling design or incorrectly following the sampling plan will obtain results that are misleading. So, if you use wrong sampling method, then it can generate an error doon sa results ng study. Meaning, possible na mali ang inyong results. It's because you utilize the wrong method of sampling procedure or sampling design. So you need to be careful when it comes to choosing the correct or appropriate sampling method because it will reflect to the quality of the data that you will generate from your respondents. Sampling requires an expert to conduct a study in an area. Otherwise, the results obtained will be erroneous. So, as what I've mentioned earlier, if you have um, long list of criteria for your respondents to qualify, so kailangan ng expert in order to tawag nito, in order to test the target population if kung marami ba sa kanila na qualify doon sa sinet nyo na criteria. Okay, the characteristic to be observed may occur rarely in a population. Okay, for example, teacher over 30 years of teaching experience. So, kapag ganitong klase ng criteria, mahirapan talaga kayo kapag yung criteria is mahirap siya hanapin among the target populations. Okay, complicated sampling plans are laborious to prepare, meaning, tawag nito, mahirap or trabahoso. You need to exert a lot of effort. You need to invest a lot of your time, money, and other resources. Then there are two general types of sampling, the probability sampling or scientific sampling, and the non-probability. So let's discuss first the probability sampling or scientific sampling. This type of sampling gives every member of the population equal chance to be selected as part of the study. Meaning, lahat ng members dun sa population may equal chance to be part or to be selected study. And there are 5 sampling schemes of this type. Meron tayong simple random sampling, excuse me, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, and multi-stage sampling. We say simple random sampling is made when all the members of the population are given a chance to be selected. Selection is done by draw lot or the use of the table of random numbers. Meaning, halimbawa, sa if you conduct a study na simple random lang yung kailangan, kapag halimbawa yung target population ninyo is yung junior high school students. Lahat ng junior high school students from grade 7 to grade 10 are qualified to be selected as a respondent dun sa study. So since malaki yung population, you'll be needing a sampling procedure in order to identify a specific number of students to participate or respond sa study. So sa simple random sampling lang, meaning random lang kayo pipili doon sa list of students ng junior high school from grade 7 to grade 10. So simple random, you just have to pick lang. Pwede by draw lots ba? Yung gagawin ninyo, you just have to assign number, specific number for every student. So it's depending on your method. As long as you just have to randomly select the respondents doon sa list. That's simple random sampling. Lahat ng members, the population, will be given a chance to be selected to be part sa study. Simple random sampling, get a list of the total population. So this is just an example of how we're going to do the simple random sampling. So get a list of the total population, cut pieces of paper to small sizes. If you choose to have a draw lots, when you randomly select the students, then put a number on each piece of paper corresponding to each number of the total population. Then roll each piece of numbered paper and put them in a box. Tapos pipili na kayo. Halimbawa, kung yung sample size ninyo is 50 lang. So you just have to pick 50 pieces of paper. Then you check the number being assigned to that. Then those being picked will be considered as your research respondents. So ganito yung simple random sampling. Then we have systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is choosing the nth name in a population as a sample. It entails using a list of the population and deciding how the nth name is chosen. Itong systematic sampling, kaya halimbawa, every second doon sa study ninyo or every third doon sa list. Kaya halimbawa, we'll show you an example. We'll open a file. Halimbawa ito. Sort. Halimbawa ito. Can you see the Excel file? Makita. Okay, this is the master list of all the students in senior high school sa CCSA. Kaya halimbawa, if you will use systematic sampling, kung every second lang yung i-consider ninyo na mag-participate sa study, okay, you will mark the names of the students every second doon sa master list. Kaya halimbawa, itong kalawa si Alonso, next Antepuesto, next Avergonzado, Baklaan, Balbuena, Benemerito, Puntas, Cabahog, Cortez, Tabatos, Diaz, Ipil, Galicia, Core, Chupea, Lanoy, Lungakit, Masangay, Mercado, Monteliano, Pajoleras, Patarata, Peñonal, Veche, Rojas, Sevilla, and Tutor. So this is how you do the systematic sampling. So in this case, every second. It's up to you kung every first or every third or every fourth or every fifth. Depende sa inyo. Since itong systematic sampling, the same with random lang siya. Meaning, lahat ng members of the population have the chance to become a respondent study. Okay? Okay, halimbawa, this sampling scheme is used when there is a ready list of the population. The steps in using these schemes are get the list of the total population, divide the total population by desired sample size to get the sampling interval. Then if the total population is 5,000 and the desired sample is 100, so pwede ito yung gawin ninyo. Kung 5,000 yung population and then 100 lang yung kailangan, so pwede use this kind of method. So you divide 5,000 by 100 since 50 yung answer. So every 50th of the list siya. Next, we have the stratified random sampling. When we say stratified random sampling, it's dividing the population into strata and drawing the sample at random from each division. For example, the population to be sampled are the elementary school teachers in one district. These are stratified by their ranks as teacher 1, 2, 3. Samples of equal number are drawn from each rank. Itong stratified random sampling, mas meron siyang criteria compared with systematic and random. In stratified, you will be grouped according to the criteria being selected by the researchers. Halimbawa, yung criteria is the rank of the teachers. Meron kasing ranking sa teachers. Halimbawa, merong rank 1, rank 2, rank 3. So, you will divide the teachers according to their rank. Itong one good example of stratified random sampling is during yung mga tawag nito, pre-election surveys. So as what if you're watching news or sa social media kapag nagbabasa kayo ng news about yung mga pre-election surveys like dito sa class A, class B, class C, class D, tawag dyan is stratified sampling. Kasi the respondents of that survey are being grouped according to their economic status or their educational background depending on the characteristics na giset sa researcher. So that's one good example of stratified sampling. The group of people, the population is being grouped according to the criteria being set by the researcher. So it could be the economic status, it could be the level of education, ganun siya. So sa mga sa mga ano sa tawag ano, sa mga pre-election survey, mostly they stratified the samples according to their socio-economic or the social status, tawag ng social status. So halimbawa sa mga class A, yung mga nasa upper class or yung mga mayayaman, rich people. Sa class B, yung mga nasa above average na class. Sa class C, yung mga middle class ng mga tao. So ganun siya yung stratified random sampling. Huwag na to. Then we have the cluster sampling. It's a design that uses a group of a sample rather than an individual. Okay, for example, the population may be the parents in one school district. The parents may be grouped by barangay within the district or by those in the east, west, north, and south of the district. Ito namang cluster sampling, though the same with stratified, pero iba naman yung characteristics sa paggrupo ng cluster sampling. Mostly, it refers to the location ng uh, respondents. Halimbawa, yung target population ninyo is yung residents of Barangay Maa. So, sa Barangay Maa, since marami siyang villages. So, depende kung unsa nga I don't know anong tawag dun, kung purok ba or purok number ba. So, depende kung unsa nga purok number. So, dito na belong ang grupo. Regardless of the educational background, the social status, or economic status, as long as yung location ang gina-consider. That's cluster sampling. So meaning sa cluster sampling, it refers to the geographical location of the respondents or target population. And we have the multi-stage sampling. It is done by stages, 2, 3, 4, as the case may be, depending on the number of stages sampling is made. Here, the population is grouped by hierarchy from which sampling is done in each stage. For example, the population is to be studied consists of the personal and the public elementary schools in the country. So samples have to be taken from the national, regional, provincial, district, and school levels. Itong multi-stage sampling kapag malaking scope ng study. So meron sa national level, merong regional level, or provincial level, or district level. So marami siyang stages na kino-consider based on the hierarchy. And we have the non-probability or non-scientific sampling. Say, it is the opposite of probability. Here, the researcher's judgment determines the choice of the sample. Itong non-probability or non-scientific sampling, mostly ginagamit ito sa qualitative study, kagaya ng sa inyo. Itong probability or scientific sampling, mostly used by quantitative studies. Although pwede itong dalawa, itong non-probability at saka probability if you're using mixed method study. Okay, there are three kinds commonly used in non-probability sampling. First, we have purposive sampling. In this design, the samples are chosen based on the judgment of the researcher who determines an individual as sample for possessing special characteristics of some sort. Itong purposive sampling, meaning meron kayong specific criteria that you'll consider in terms of choosing your participants or respondents. Itong sa purposive sampling, meron siyang mahabang list or meron kayong specific criteria talaga. Halimbawa dun sa study nila Reniel na emotional responses of the gamers, online gamers. So, kailangan ng purposive sampling doon sa study since you will select a specific group of um, persons that will qualify to participate dun sa study. So you need to consider the frequency, kung how many hours do they spend on playing online games. What are the specific online games na kailangan na they usually play, and what specific rank, kasi 'di ba sa may mga games kasi na may ranking. Halimbawa, sa tawag nito Mobile Legends, sa Dota, merong mga ranking tawag, 'di ba? So these are the things that you may consider sa uh, pag-select ng participant. So ang tawag dyan is purposive sampling. There should be specific characteristics or set of criteria that the target respondent should suffice in order for them to qualify. So merong specific qualifications itong purposive sampling. And we have incidental or accidental sampling. As the term implies, this design is used to take samples who may be the most available or the nearest at the time of data gathering. So, itong incidental or accidental sampling, kung sino lang yung the time that you conducted or you gathered your research data, then you go to a specific location, kung sino lang dun ang present, then you can ask them to be your respondents. Okay, I remember when before I studied in USEP kasi, I studied in UM. So, dun sa UM, nag-conduct kami ng study, yung researchers na kailangan namin is, research participants na kailangan namin, or research respondents kailangan namin, mga HRM students. HRM students. So, hindi siya ganun uh, karaming criteria or qualification to select the participants. As long as HRM student ka, then you can be qualified to respond sa study. So, kung sino na yung makita namin doon sa location namin, then we'll ask them if they are HRM students, then pwede sila mag-participate sa study. So that's incidental or accidental sampling. So in incidental or accidental, you decide the sample size. So look for people who can be interviewed. If you decide na 100 yung sample size ninyo, so as long as makagather kayo ng 100, okay na yun. Then we have quota sampling, a design popular for opinion research. This sampling is made by looking for individuals that possess the required characteristics or prescribed criteria of the research. Itong quota sampling, may pagka-incidental sampling siya or accidental, pero mas may criteria siya or mas may qualification. So if your quota is 100, so which means that you'll be needing 100 persons in order to participate or respond to your study as long as they qualify doon sa sinet nyo na standard. So that's the end of my discussion. Okay. Do you have questions, clarifications? It's already 2:29, so I will just make it quick. By the way, uh, sa module ninyo for this week, I already posted doon sa Schoology week 4. You may check that one. And then there will be no weekly assessment activities in practical research since I want you to focus on conducting your research study na. And then you may start conducting your research na. Then after this one, I will share the files dun sa group leaders kasi naka-drive, Google Drive kasi siya. So I will share the file sa inyo. Check the comments, suggestions, or recommendations of the of the ano to, panel members, yung Ma'am Princess at Sir Mark, kung ano man yung nakalagay doon sa file. And then, you may start crafting your Google form na if you will use Google form para sa written interview ninyo. Do not, ano ha, walang ka na, do not, ang tawag dito, yung conversational style of interview, do not use that one kasi you will transcribe pa sa study ninyo. Sa written interview kasi, diretso na siya mag-analyze since nakasulat na siya. Okay, are we clear about that? So, pwede na kayo mag-start ng conduct ng study ninyo. So, if you have questions or concern when you gather your data na, you can message me through Schoology or sa Messenger. So, any questions or concerns, clarification? I will just set the deadline for your for your study. Um, Tomorrow we'll discuss the methodology. The next week we'll discuss how you're going to analyze your study or the data that you gathered for your study. Okay, I think that's it. If you have further questions or concerns sa follow up na mga concern, you just have to message me ha. Okay, I'm going to end the Zoom meeting. Bye guys.